Hello and welcome to another episode of Military Transition Wellness. I'm your host, Michelle Seidling. Today we are talking about living your uncommon and extraordinary life. We have someone who has done just about everything under the sun, and he has lived and continues to live an extraordinary life. Terry Tucker, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm looking forward to talking with you today.
Oh, we are so happy to have you, and so many different avenues. Will you start out with just telling us about, introduce yourself, and you've got a diversity of different things that you've done over the years, and what kind of drove you, I guess, to each individual thing, a very diverse level of experience. Will you introduce yourself to help us understand this whole gamut of experiences?
Sure. So I was born and raised in Chicago. You can't tell this from looking at me or from my voice, but I'm 6'8" tall, and I'm the oldest of three boys. I have another brother who's 6'7", who was a pitcher for the University of Notre Dame, and another brother who's 6'6", who was drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers in the National Basketball Association. And then my dad was 6'5". So I sort of joke that if you sat behind our family in church growing up, there wasn't a prayer's chance you were going to see anything that was going on whatsoever. But our, 5'8" mother was really the boss. It didn't matter how big, strong, tall, whatever we were, whatever mom said, that's the way it went. So I was fortunate enough, despite having 3 knee surgeries in high school, to play college basketball at the Citadel, the military college of South Carolina in Charleston. And then after I graduated, I moved home to find a job. I'm really going to date myself now, but this was long before the internet was available to help people find jobs. And I was all, set to make my mark on the world with my newly obtained business administration degree. And I look back now and realize kind of what a knucklehead I was to think I knew anything about business just because I had a degree. Fortunately, I was able to find that first job in the corporate headquarters of Wendy's International, the hamburger chain. But unfortunately, I ended up living with my parents for the next 3.5 years as I helped my mom care for my father and my grandmother, who were both dying of different forms of cancer. In terms of my professional career, as I said, I worked at Wendy's initially. Then I became a hospital administrator. And then I did a major pivot in my life and became a police officer. And I was an undercover narcotics investigator. I was a SWAT Team Hostage Negotiator. Then I started my own school security consulting business. I was a girls' high school basketball coach. 2019, I started doing some motivational speaking. 2020 now, since it's 2022, I published my first book. But for the last 10 years, I've pretty much considered myself, I guess, a cancer warrior, so to speak. And then I guess I'll round it out with my wife and I have been married for 28 years. We have one child, a daughter, who's a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy, and is an officer in the new branch of the military, the Space Force.
Oh, fantastic. Oh my goodness. So many different things. I'm wondering what led you to go into such diverse things, one after the other. What was pulling you along to these things?
Yeah, I've always felt my passion was to be in law enforcement. But my grandfather, my father's dad, was a Chicago police officer from 1924 to 1954. So he was in Chicago during Prohibition, when alcohol was outlawed, during the Great Depression in the 20s and 30s. And then when the gangs, Al Capone and those guys were shooting up the town, so to speak. And he was actually shot in the line of duty with his own gun. It was not a serious injury. He was shot in the ankle. But my dad always remembered the stories my grandmother told of the knock on the door of, Mrs. Tucker, grab your son and come with us. Your husband's been shot. So when I expressed an interest in going into law enforcement, my dad was like, absolutely not. You're going to go to college. You're going to major in business. You're going to get a great job. You're going to get married, have 2.4 kids, live in the suburbs, and live happily ever after. Unfortunately, that was what my father wanted me to do. So I had a choice when I graduated from college. I could blaze my own trail and go off and do law enforcement. Or, as I mentioned, my father was sick and dying of cancer. And as you look at my resume, my first two jobs were in business because I did that out of love and respect for my father who was dying. And then I sort of joke, I did what every good son did. I waited until my father passed away, and then I followed my own dreams. And I'm sure there's a lot of people, a lot of your audience are listening to that. They're like, what do I do with my life? Or, my father was in the military, my grandfather was in the military, and, I'm expected to do that. And I get that. I understand that people, a lot of us don't know what we want to do in life, but there are people who are kind of forced into things, sometimes the military as well, because, they have a family member who did it. And that's a hard thing to do. If your heart's not in that, and now you're at a point where you're transitioning in, like, yeah, I did that, but now I'm going to transition into civilian life. You have to follow your passion. You have to follow your heart. And I always recommend, especially to young people, if there's something in your heart, something in your soul that you feel you should do, but that scares you, go ahead and do it. Because at the end of your life, the things you're going to regret are not going to be the things you did. They're going to be the things you didn't do. And by then it's going to be too late to go back and do those things.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my goodness. There is such a rich motivation in all of those things. I appreciate you sharing how you came to go into law enforcement. That is fantastic. Just honoring being able to take care of your father for a time until he passed, and then just really blazing your own trail, as you said, and being able to go with your own passions. So you kind of had I guess, the best of both worlds, so to speak.
I did. I did. And I was very lucky. I learned a lot in business. I learned a lot at Wendy's in their marketing department. I was kind of there in the heyday of fast food, and certainly the number of years I was in healthcare administration, learned a lot, got to work with some great people. And I think it certainly matured me to the point where when I did go into law enforcement, and, I was a 37-year-old rookie cop, and by most people's account, that's kind of old to be getting into that kind of work. But I was so passionate about it that it was just, I couldn't wait to get up and go to work every night and that. So it was a lot of fun for me. And like I said, was able to take what I learned in business and apply a lot of that when I was in law enforcement.
Absolutely. And I'm sure, those who are transitioning out of the military, there are a lot of experiences that they can take with them into the civilian world.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I look at the opportunities that our daughter has been exposed to being in the military, the amount of training that they give you, and not just, training in your specialty, but training in, how to be a leader, how to communicate. And those things are incredibly important in, as much as they are in the military, they certainly are in the civilian world as well. And there are very, very few good communicators. If you're an excellent communicator, and I would encourage anybody, I always encourage our daughter, whatever training you can get in the military, take it. I don't care how many TDYs you got to go on. I don't care whatever you have to do. Get out there and take that training, because you may it wasn't great training, but was there one thing you learned? Was there one little nugget that you were able to pick up from that training? Or, hey, this was the greatest training I've ever had. It just makes you a better person. It makes you more well-rounded. And if you're a well-rounded individual, you can be successful in any career or any endeavor that you undertake. And I think a lot of that, for people, the military matures you. It basically says, hey, you know what, you're an adult now. Mom and dad aren't here to make these decisions for you. You have to make these adult decisions. And for a lot of people, that's scary, but that's a big part of growing up and realizing that, hey, this is on me now. And not only is it on me, but there are other people that are relying on me to make sure that I do my job correctly.
Absolutely. And oh my goodness, the I guess the impetus and the pressure that is put on you too, that may serve as a motivator to help you either do more training or helping you to really reach out and blaze your own trail.
Absolutely.
So Fantastic. Now you talk a lot about, we're talking leading your uncommon and extraordinary life. Obviously you have. Now, how did you do that? How did that come about that, okay, I've got an uncommon and extraordinary life. I want to share that with others?
I think it really came out of my sort of 10-year experience with cancer. I've been diagnosed with a rare form of cancer that I was diagnosed with back in 2012. So it's been 10 years now. I've had all kinds of different therapies that unfortunately have included in 2018 the amputation of my left foot, and in 2020 the amputation of my left leg. And now I have these tumors in my lungs. So I've had a lot of time to sit and heal and to think. And I think thinking is definitely an underrated thing that we don't do. You know, we're so busy. We've got to do all this stuff, but to sit back and think, and what's really important in life. And it's not money, it's not fame, it's not riches, it's not importance. And when I wrote my book in 2020, it's a book about success, and I'm very proud of the book. But what I think I missed the point on, and I've always believed this, even from a little kid, that our job, our mission, if you want to call that, in life, regardless of what we do, whether we're in the military or we're in the civilian world, is to serve, is to be of service to other people. And I think my book is a good book, but it's a book about success. And I think a word that is even more important, and I think I'd like my second book, which I'm kind of researching right now, to be about significance. Significance is what we do for other people. Success is what we do for ourselves. Now, I think you can be both. You can be successful and you can be significant in life, but I really think the importance here is to be significant. And I found that over these 10 years, I had a nurse recently ask me, what was it like to have your foot amputated and to have your leg amputated? And I told her, I said, it's certainly not been easy. I am still learning how to walk again with a prosthetic. It's one thing when you're a little kid and you're learning to walk and you kind of fall over and things are great, but I'm 6'8" tall, so falling is not an option. You get hurt from this height and things like that. So, yeah. But what I told her was that, cancer can take all my faculties, but cancer can't touch my mind, it can't touch my heart, and it can't touch my soul. And that's who we really are as people. It doesn't matter, what you do. It doesn't matter how big you are, tall you are, strong you are, fast you are, thin, fat, tall, short, whatever it is. None of that matters because it's not really who we are. Who we are is our heart, our mind, and our soul. And I think if you kind of keep that in mind as you transition, what is your passion? What is your purpose in life? And if you can find that and live that, then when you get to the end of your life, which we all are going to do, death and what's beyond is not nearly as scary because you actually live. So many people in life live a casual life. And because of that, their goals, their dreams, their desires become a casualty of that unplanned living. So figure out what it is you're supposed to do with your life. We're not all born with the same gifts and talents, but we all have the ability to become the best person that we're capable of becoming.
I love that. I just love your own drive. Now, did you, in all of these different things, did you always have that passion and that drive, or did that come over time?
I think it's come over time. I mean, when I started out, my passion, what I felt my passion or purpose was basketball. And in a lot of ways, I think basketball made me very one-dimensional. I was so focused on basketball that I was too focused on me and not focused on other people. And one of the things that I learned from being part of team sports, and I started playing basketball when I was 9 years old and played all the way up until I graduated from college when I was 21, And, and if you think about it, certainly the military is a great big team in and of itself, is that being part of a team, you realize that, if you don't do your job, not only do you let yourself down, but you let, your teammates down, your coaches down, your fans down, your parents down. And what team sports taught me is the importance of being part of something that's bigger than yourself. And if you think about it, the biggest team game that we all play is this game of life. So I always, I think it's real important for us, in living our uncommon and extraordinary life, to realize that it's not about you. You're certainly unique, but I don't think you're really that special. None of us are really that special. We're all very unique. Like I said, we all have unique gifts and talents. But there's a tendency, especially among young people today, to think that it's all about me. What's in it for me? And I remember a nurse asked me one time, "What did you think about the night before you had your leg amputated? The night before you had your foot? You're kind of alone with your thoughts, and you're going to have these big surgeries, and you're certainly going to be different." And what I thought about was those men and women, off the shore of Normandy, on June 5th, 1944, waiting to go ashore. Many of them sitting there realizing that, this is going to be it for me. I'm never going to get married. I'm never going to have a family. I'm never going to do anything like that. But were willing to sacrifice their own lives for something that they believed was bigger than themselves. And that, it to me, is, I look at that and think, you're having your leg cut off. Big deal compared to what those men and women, many of them, in all honesty, children, were facing in their lives. So I think it's real important to kind of look at the big picture and realize that maybe it's not so much about you as it is about us together. Individually, it's hard for us to get anything done. Collectively, we can do almost anything we put our minds to.
I love that. I love that sense of teamwork, that sense of camaraderie that you certainly get in the military, but that you also get in a host of many civilian experiences as well. Oh my goodness. So now you have, well, with the military here, with transitioners, with those who are thinking about getting out, recently are, or in the process of transitioning to that civilian life. Maybe it's scary, maybe it's not, but how do they build that uncommon and extraordinary life? Perhaps they've already had some extraordinary things going on, but how does that happen? And how can they learn from your experiences?
I think one of the important things is certainly anything new, anything different, anything we don't quite understand can be scary for us, and that's okay. That's just there's a certain amount of pain that I think is good for us in life. I always say that for all of us, pain is inevitable, and it doesn't have to be like for me, with 10 years of cancer pain. It could be something simple like, you flunk a test in school, or you break up with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, or like we're talking about, you're transitioning from something something that's known, the military, to something that's unknown, and you're not quite sure where you fit in. Pain is inevitable in our lives. Suffering, on the other hand, suffering's optional. Suffering's what you do with that pain. Do you use that pain? Do you use that fear? Do you use that nervousness to make you a stronger and more determined individual? Or do you sit in that pain and wallow in it and feel sorry for yourself and have other people, feel sorry for you? Life is about a choice. Life is all about the choices that we make. Life owes you absolutely nothing. If you want something in this life, you have to figure out what that is, figure out how you're going to go get it, and then get after it and make that happen. Because life is not going to come to you. I mean, it will to a point, but to be happy and successful, you've got to get outside that comfort zone. You've got to make, tough decisions. And I always tell people, and I try to do this myself every single day, just do one thing that makes you uncomfortable, that scares you, that's potentially embarrassing for you. I mean, the other day, I hate going to the dentist, but I picked up the phone and called the dentist and made my 6-month appointment. That was not something I wanted to do. Maybe you're going to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go exercise, or, study for whatever it is, whatever certification you're trying to get, so that when you transition from the military, you can be, an electrician or a plumber or an HVAC person, whatever that ends up being. So I think it's real important that you do that one thing, something simple every day that makes you uncomfortable, because when the big things hit in life, and they hit for all of us, we lose somebody that's close to us, we're living out of our car, we lose our job, whatever it is, when you do those small things every day, you'll be much more resilient to handle the big things that come along in our lives.
Okay. And these, perhaps transitioning out is considered a small thing in comparison to other bigger adventures or experiences may people have?
I think so. I mean, how you determine whether something's big or little is really, it's kind of up to you. It's kind of that old joke, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, and we get caught up in, I've got to be, I'll use just the example, maybe you're transitioning out and you're going to get a sales position. And you know what? I've got to be good in sales. Well, that's a huge thing to try to wrap your head around. I guess maybe a better suggestion would be, what if you got 1% better at sales every day? So at the end of 30 days, at the end of a month, you're 30% better than when you started. That's much easier to wrap somebody's head around than it is, I've got to learn about sales. I've got to be, really good in sales, or whatever it ends up being. But those big things in life are much more manageable if we break them down into small things that we can handle that will ultimately lead us to our goal. So that's why, don't worry about being great at sales. Worry about getting better, 1% better every single day. Because like I said, at the end of a month, you're 30% better. At the end of 2 months, you're 60% better. At the end of 3 months, you're 90% better at sales than you were when you started 3 months ago.
Okay. Now, did you, that 1% better mentality and actions, did that drive a lot of your career and other experiences?
It certainly did. I was definitely in that, I've got to be good at this. Well, this is so big that how am I going to do that? It becomes overwhelming in our lives. And, life makes it very easy for us to quit. As soon as we run up against a little bit of an impediment, oh, well, no, I'm not going to do that. That was a little hard. So, now I'm going to quit. So life makes it easy to quit. And especially people who were in the military. I mean, I look at them as a civilian as people that have, I guess, for lack of a better word, what I would call grit. The military has forced you to have some grit. It's forced you to become a leader. It's forced you, to learn new things that were outside your comfort zone. And I'm telling you right now, if you have even a small amount of grit in your life, you can be so successful, because so many people get to that point where that first little impediment gets in their way, and they're like, no, I'm done. I'll find something else to do and stuff like that. Whereas you, as a member of the military, have gotten through those. You got through boot camp, or otherwise you wouldn't be transitioning. So if you got through boot camp, well, you have that grit. That grit is in you. I think it's in all of us, but there are so many people that never bother to find it. But you find that grit, and now you use it. Hey, I got through boot camp. You know what? Whatever job I'm transitioning to, however I'm getting out of the military, and whatever I'm going to, my God, I just look at those people and think, man, you can do anything you want to do, because you've already done so many things that the vast majority of people in this world would never even think to do in their lives.
Oh my goodness, that's so true. Oh my goodness, just even thinking about different military experiences and just having that drive. I think that's, if I understand you correctly, it's just that inner drive, that inner grit, as you say, to really propel you to different levels of success.
Yeah, I mean, and we all have it. I've always believed that everything that we need to be successful in life is already inside us. We just need to find it, pull it out, and use it to our advantage. And I'm not saying that from time to time, a therapist or a coach or a mentor or whatever you want to call it, it wouldn't be helpful for you to find that within you. But everything you need to be successful is already there. Don't be scared. Don't be worried about, oh, I'm transitioning. I don't know. Yeah, you're right. You didn't know about the military when you got in it either, but you got through that. And that's an incredibly difficult thing to accomplish. And you did that. So getting out into the civilian world with people who don't have that grit, who people are willing to quit so easily, you're going to be head and shoulders above them just by the experiences that you've had within the military. And you know what? The world is your oyster. You can do whatever you want with it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I love that. Now, you talk about 4 truths, and I don't, perhaps they're in your book as well, but can you shed some light on what are those and how do they influence or affect those transitioning from the military?
Sure. So I have these 4 truths. I have them on a Post-it note sitting here on my desk. I see them multiple times during the day. And I guess that would be another suggestion I would recommend to anybody who's listening to us. As you're transitioning, what are the things you want? What are the things that are important to you? Write those down. Don't type them out. Don't get on the computer and type them out and print them out and put them, but write them down. Physically write them down and put them places, put them where you will see them. Put them on your bathroom mirror, put them in your car, put them on your desk, whatever it is. Those are things that are important to you. And for me, these 4 truths, they work for me. I'm not saying they're going to work for everybody else. And I guess I would offer them as, if they do work for you, or 1 or 2 of them works for you, take them, use them in your life. But for me, I consider them sort of the bedrock of my soul. They're a good place to build a good quality life off of. So I'll give them to you. They're 1 sentence, and I'll try to break them down as quickly as I can. But the first one is, you need to control your mind, or your mind is going to control you. And I learned this one fairly early in life. I mentioned that I was a basketball player, had 3 knee surgeries in high school. And when I went back playing, my brain was putting all kinds of negative thoughts into my mind. Things like, hey, you had 3 knee surgeries, you're probably a step slower, and college coaches aren't going to be interested in recruiting you, because of these surgeries. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm still playing at an elite level, and coaches are still contacting me about playing at their college or university. So you need to change the narrative. If you're in the military and you're like, oh, I'm getting out, oh, I don't know if I can handle this, I don't know what kind of job those are all negative thoughts. And your mind can hold 1 thought at a time. Why would you make that a negative thought? I mean, I remember when I was at the Citadel, guys would go out partying the night before a big test, and then they'd come into the test. And what do we always say? We always go to the negative. Oh man, kind of hungover, I'm going to blow this test. Why would you say that to yourself? Why wouldn't you at least say, you know what? I paid attention during class, so I'm going to do great on this test. Why wouldn't you at least give yourself the benefit of the doubt? I mean, I've read several articles that say on any given day, we all have 60 to 70,000 thoughts that go through our brain, many of which we're not even cognizant are there. But think about when you are aware of that negative thought. Oh, I'm scared about transition. Like, nah, I'm not scared. You know what? I kicked butt in boot camp. Transitioning out of here is going to be great. I'm going to put something positive, replace that positive, change that, throw that switch to something positive in your life. Because if you don't, then your brain is going to start putting all that negative stuff in there, and it's just going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. The way you think is the way you're going to end up being. I'm kind of old school. So when I was a kid, there was a coach at the University of Indiana's basketball team by the name of Bobby Knight, very famous man, one of the best coaches in college basketball. And he had a saying, and this was his saying: mental is to physical as 4 is to 1. Now, here's this guy, teaching very elite athletes how to use their body. But what he's really telling them is the mental part of basketball, the mental part of the military, the mental part of whatever you're transitioning to is 4 times more important than the physical part of it. So keep that in mind. What you are saying to yourself a lot of times it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So make that, whatever you're saying, something positive. So that's the first one. The second one is embrace the pain and the difficulty that we all experience in life and use that to make you a stronger and more determined individual. Our brains are hardwired to avoid pain and discomfort and to seek pleasure. So to the brain, the status quo is great. You know, the way things are right now, everything's good. Don't mess with it. But the only way you're going to grow, the only way you're going to get better is if you step outside those comfort zones. But that's scary. And I guess what I'm saying is, instead of running from pain, and people do it every day, they run to alcohol, they run to drugs, they run to behavior that's not in their best interest. Instead of doing that, take that pain, take that worry, take that anxiety, and flip it inside. Use it as energy, burn it as fuel to make you a stronger individual. I am the biggest wimp in the world. And if I can do that with my therapies, with losing my leg and losing my foot, I promise you, anybody who's listening to me can do this as well. So that's number two. Number three is more of a legacy truth. I think it's important for all of us to think about the end game. And I'm not telling you you've got to live your life to make somebody else happy. You don't. You have to live a life that's true to yourself. But what are people going to say about you at your funeral? And here's number three. What you leave behind is what you weave in the hearts of other people. So we tend to, and I'm sure you know, as people are transitioning out, there's all this anxiety. How is this going to affect me? The easiest way to get over that is to get outside yourself, is to find somebody else that you can help, to find somebody else you can make a difference in their lives. I mean, maybe it's your grandmother, you know, maybe it's a friend that's having a difficult time, whatever it is. The best way to get outside yourself is to get in somebody else's head, to get inside somebody else's life and help them out. So think about that as your legacy. And then number four is, as long as you don't quit, you can never be defeated. And the way I look at this in my life is, you know, I have all this pain from cancer and treatments and things like that. My pain someday is going to end. All our pain is going to end. It may, for me, end through surgery. It may end through medication. Quite frankly, it may end when I die. But if I quit, if I give up, if I give in, then pain is always going to be a part of my life. So don't worry about failing. Don't worry about, I don't know if I can do this. You know, failure is a good thing. Failure, in my mind, is part of being successful, because very rarely do you find somebody that gets out there and says, you know, hey, I invented the light bulb. I mean, you look at Edison, he talks about, there were like 999,000 different ways he tried to make the light bulb, and he never did, but he never quit. He kept going, he kept moving forward, and eventually he made the light bulb. Same thing applies to you and I. Get out there, do things that scare you, make a mistake, you know, screw up. That's okay. That's part of life. That's part of learning. And, you know, a lot of times, and one of the chapters in my book is, most people think with their fears and their insecurities instead of using their minds. No, I've done that. It's like, oh, I really want to do that, but what are people going to say about me? You know, I might fail. Good, fail often, especially when you're young, because I promise you, you're going to be a whole lot better human being if you fail at things, recover, and then be successful at them.
Wow, I love that. I mean, we could have a podcast for each one of these. But you've really implemented, through your experiences, you've implemented each one of these as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I could go back and tell you how each one of those has impacted my journey through cancer and things like that. But since we're talking about, you know, the transition out of the military into civilian life, I wanted to really kind of think about those things as people are making that transition. I mean, you're going to make transitions in your life all the time. You're going to change jobs. You're going to get married. You're going to have children. You're going to have your parents die. You're going to have all these different transitions in your life. And it's okay. You know, again, your brain likes the status quo, likes the way things are right now. But the only way you grow, the only way you get better is you step outside that comfort zone. You you do things that are difficult. And as I said, just do one thing every day, one small thing that makes you nervous. I'm going to get up an hour earlier today, or I'm going to go for a run, or whatever you decide you want to do. Do one thing that's uncomfortable, and I promise you, it's going to make you a much stronger and more determined individual.
Absolutely. Now, what can people do, those transitioning? What's the first step? What can they do to really start this process and create their own extraordinary life?
I think the easiest way or the best way for people to start is to find out why they were put on the face of this. We were all put here for a reason. And as I said before, we don't all have the same, gifts and talents, but we all have the ability to become the best person that we're capable of becoming. And if you search for that purpose in your life with an open heart, I believe you're going to find it. And I guess maybe I ought to step back here and say this. A lot of times we equate our purpose in life with our job. That our job has got to be our purpose. Your job doesn't have to be your purpose. You could have a job over here that you do that pays the bills, but your purpose is to write or to paint or to be an activist or to volunteer or whatever that ends up being. But find in your heart the reason you were put here. And, I know this kind of sounds like pie in the sky. I know this is touchy feely stuff. And I know a lot of people in the military are like, no, I'm not like that and stuff like that. Trust me, I wasn't like that either. I was kind of a macho guy and, athletics and law enforcement and stuff like that. But the important things in life are it's anybody can be tough. Anybody can be abrasive and stuff like that. The real important things in life are kind and gentle and loving and caring. And I know those words aren't words that you probably hear in the military a lot, but they're words that matter. They matter as people. We're not designed to be alone. We're not designed, to be, by ourselves. We're designed to be in a group. And a couple of months ago, I finished a great book that I guess I'd recommend to you, Michelle, and certainly your audience. And it's called Legacy. And it's written by a man by the name of Kerr. And the book is about the New Zealand national rugby team, who by all intents and purpose is the most successful sports franchise in any sport in any country of all times. And I couldn't put the book down. I ended up taking 4 pages of notes while I was reading it. But one of the things that I found fascinating was, here's this very successful sports team. And you would think that when they're bringing somebody onto their team, and I don't know anything about rugby, so I'm not even going to try to go there. But when they're bringing somebody on, you would think they would bring somebody on who's technically competent in whatever position they're recruiting for. But the 2 things that they look for in a new player on their team are, number 1, character. What kind of a person are you? Not what kind of a player are you? What kind of a person are you? How do you treat, the manager in the locker room? Do you pick up after yourself? What kind of an individual are you? How do you treat your family? How do you treat your parents? How do you treat your wife or husband? So that's number 1. And number 2, they hire for humility. You don't have to have all the answers. That's okay. The way they look at it is that when we have a problem, we will come together collectively as a team and we'll figure out the answer. You've done that in the military. All you people that are listening to it, you've done that in the military. You've gotten with your squads or your wings or your flights or wherever branch that you're in, and we've got this problem. How are we going to handle it? It's not like, hey, Major, you got to handle this. The rest of us, we're just backing off. You take care of it for us, all right? No, that's how they come. So the most successful sports team of all times hires for character and humility. Those things are important. Think about that as you're transitioning out of the military into civilian life.
Oh, I love that. And it's certainly their life and their legacy developed. And then even outside of their rugby career, they were able to make a difference, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Terry, have had an amazing career. What is next on your front? For what other extraordinary things do you have going on or in the works?
I would certainly like to write a second book that, really focuses on significance and go down that road. May happen, may not happen. I have tumors in my lungs, probably coming to the end of my life. But I don't worry about that. Everybody dies. Not everybody really lives. And when I found out I was having my leg amputated, I went with my wife to the church and the mortuary and the cemetery, and I planned my funeral. And I go on these podcasts and I talk about motivation and continuing to move forward and things like that. And I got some brushback from people that were like, hey, wait, don't you think that's kind of defeatist? And I kind of looked at them like, well, last time I checked, we're all going to die. I don't think anybody's working on a cure for life right now. So, I think the important thing is that everybody dies, but not everybody lives. And years ago, I heard a North American Blackfoot proverb that I'll share with you. And it goes like this: when you were born, you cried and the world rejoiced. Live your life in such a way so that when you die, the world cries and you rejoice. That's what I want. And I think the important words in that phrase are live your life. Get out there and find the reason that you were put on the face of this earth and live that. And if you do, the end is going to be an absolute blast for you.
Oh, I love it. Amazing. You are amazing. You're extraordinary. I appreciate all of your experiences. How can people get in contact with you and perhaps get the book as well?
So the book is called Sustainable Excellence, the 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life. It's available anywhere you can get a book online. So Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, Apple iBooks, wherever you can get a book, you can get Sustainable Excellence. And then in 2019, I started a blog called Motivational Check. Every day I put up a thought for the day, and with that thought comes a question to think about how maybe you could use that thought in your life, make you a better person. On Mondays, I put up the Monday morning motivational message, which is a video or a story. It's a little bit longer, but I understand that people's time, is at a premium. So I always say, if you need a quick hit of inspiration, go to motivationalcheck.com and get that hit, and then move on with your day. You can leave me a message there. You can get access to my social media sites. You can actually buy the book there as well. So motivationalcheck.com.
Fantastic. Terry, you're amazing. I really enjoyed having you on the podcast. I certainly know that transitioners in any phase or in any branch will benefit from this advice.
Well, Michelle, thanks for having me on. And I guess to all the men and women out there who serve our country, thank you for doing that. You have no idea how us civilians really appreciate, having a daughter in the military. I appreciate much more what you all do for us. And I can't say anything more than from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your service.
Thank you, Terry.